Hi there, I'm Tony Grant, and this is Learn English with Tony, a weekly podcast to improve your listening skills and grow your English vocabulary. Join me for a new episode every Friday, where I'll give a short talk on a theme and explore a few interesting words and phrases for you. Have you ever thought seriously about living abroad? Not just going travelling on holiday for a few weeks, but actually picking up your life and moving it to another country. Most people probably haven't considered it very seriously. Like most living creatures, we humans are in many ways best suited or adapted to the environments we live in. We know how things work in our own countries, right? We know the systems, the laws, the customs, and most usefully, the language. By this stage, I think I've lived and worked outside the UK for most of my life. On the whole, I feel very lucky to have had the chance to experience life in different countries, some of them very, very different to my own country of origin. The realization that there are lots of ways to organize human society, all with their own strengths and weaknesses in different areas, is really fascinating. But it can also bring with it a lot of difficulties and new problems to solve on a daily basis. When I've found myself a long way from home and struggling with some aspect of life that the people around me, comfortable in their own environment, all seem to be having no problems at all with, there's a game I like to play, a kind of thought experiment. I try to think backwards in time and imagine how much harder it must have been to live abroad in the past. Let's take something like keeping in contact with your family as an example. The first step is to go back before the days of Wi-Fi and smartphones, when you had to queue in an internet cafe for a dial-up connection, which would cut out every time you got halfway through typing out an email. Further back, before the internet, speaking to family meant finding a payphone and having to collect coins. Go back even further, and all you had was writing letters. There was a delay of weeks between each letter, between questions and answers. And how about going back to the times before aeroplanes existed? Letters had to go by sea and would have taken weeks. Not to mention the fact that getting home in an emergency would have taken weeks too. Yes, living abroad was a decision not to be taken lightly in the past. We've got it easy nowadays in comparison. The internet and modern technology has changed things completely and opened the world up in ways that couldn't have been imagined just a few generations ago. One of the things that has revolutionized life the most for me in recent years is instant translation apps. Coming from a country with an alphabet-based language to a country like Japan, where the writing system is character-based, I've really struggled with reading. In most European countries, even if I didn't know much of the language, I'd at least be able to identify separate words and pronounce them after learning a few basic rules. That's a big first step in learning a new word. But in Japan, I could be looking at the same road sign or shop window for years, and if I don't know the kanji or characters it's written in, I'd probably never get any closer to being able to read or pronounce it out loud. That's been really challenging and has made lots of areas of life difficult for me. For example, filling out application forms online, doing complex transactions at ATMs, and the list goes on and on. But since Google Translate became available on smartphones, that problem has, well, not gone away completely, but has been made much easier. Translation apps used to be pretty bad at translating Japanese to English. Probably because they used to be rule-based. They were taught from grammatical and linguistic rules. And, for example, Japanese and English are so different that the translations rarely made much sense at all. But more recently, with AI technology that uses massive databases of text in each language to find the best translation it can, the quality and accuracy has improved dramatically. And with Google now building in its Google Lens image recognition technology, which can convert image to text, you literally just have to point your phone's camera at the sign, computer screen, ATM screen, or whatever it is you need to translate, and you can get an almost instantaneous translation. Now, how good is that? Well, it certainly doesn't remove the incentive to learn the language and its writing system properly, but it does remove an awful lot of pain from day-to-day life. You could even take a screenshot of the audio script of this podcast and upload it to Google Translate and check any words I'm using that you're not familiar with. Anyway, back to living abroad. So this week, I'd like you to email me and share any tips you've found that have made life easier for you when you've been outside of your own country. And if I get enough good ones, maybe I could share them all in a future podcast episode. Thank you for listening to Learn English with Tony. If there's a